We begin in the Centennial State, a place where legend, history, and the inexplicable converge in the deep shadows of its mountains. From hikers who disappeared to haunted hotels and crimes that still confound authorities, Colorado is home to secrets that continue to fascinate and bewilder. Let us explore the narratives behind these perplexing cases, seeking the truth that may be concealed somewhere within the Rockies. When most people imagine Denver, they think of ski lodges, mountain vistas, and a thriving city culture. But just on the outskirts, there is an airport that has become one of the most debated and bizarre structures in the world. This is Denver International Airport, or DA, a place some refer to as a nexus for the Illuminati. We are about to descend into the swirling vortex of one of America's most elaborate airport conspiracy theories, so prepare for a turbulent journey. Let's examine the fundamental facts. Denver's new airport opened its doors in 1995, running 2 years behind schedule and an astounding $2 billion over its projected budget. Almost immediately, the public started asking pointed questions. Why construct it so far from the city when the original airport was conveniently located and fully operational? What necessitated all the secrecy during its construction? And why were 5 enormous buildings allegedly buried whole instead of being torn down? This last point is particularly significant, as construction workers have reported building massive structures only to learn later they were intentionally covered with earth. Many believe these form the foundation of a vast underground bunker network, perhaps intended for global elites, high-ranking officials, or even extraterrestrials. Then there is the art. DI is famously adorned with cryptic, unsettling, and sometimes downright horrifying murals and sculptures. One enormous painting is titled "Children of the World Dream of Peace," a wholesome name that belies its imagery of a gas-masked soldier brandishing a scimitar over dead children in caskets and a desolate, war-torn landscape. And outside, greeting all travelers, is Lucifer, the 32-foot-tall blue Mustang statue. This nickname was bestowed by locals due to its piercing, glowing red eyes and the grim fact that it was responsible for the death of its creator. During its assembly in 2006, a section of the sculpture fell on artist Luis Jimenez, severing a major artery in his leg and causing him to bleed to death. Now, this demonic horse stands guard over the airport, offering visitors a chilling stare alongside its deadly backstory. Inside, the strangeness continues with gargoyles emerging from suitcases and a time capsule in the Great Hall, sealed until the year 2994, which bears a dedication to something called the New World Airport Commission, an organization that has never officially existed. One of the most enduring theories suggests that a massive underground complex lies beneath the airport's public spaces. This isn't just a basement. We're talking about government shelters, FEMA internment camps, or perhaps even a secret headquarters for aliens. There are countless reports describing intricate tunnel systems, advanced rail networks, and restricted zones with round-the-clock security. Some airport employees have even spoken of witnessing unusual equipment being transported underground or hearing strange, low-frequency humming noises emanating from off-limits areas. The very layout of the airport has also drawn suspicion. When viewed from above, the runways appear to some to form the shape of a swastika, which has fueled theories of Nazi connections and mind control experiments, suggesting the airport is a future hub for a totalitarian regime. Is this simply a case of poor design, or does it hint at something far more sinister? This is where the situation becomes even more peculiar. The airport administration is fully aware of these conspiracy theories, but instead of refuting them, they actively embrace them. DI has displayed posters featuring alien eyes peering from construction zones with taglines like, "Are we building an alien bunker?" or "Welcome to the Illuminati headquarters." This could be a stroke of marketing genius, but to believers, it's a provocative act. It's either a clever way to dismiss the truth or a form of mockery, hiding the reality in plain sight. And finally, there is the prominent Masonic plaque located in the airport's main hall. It features the Freemason symbol and that enigmatic dedication to the non-existent New World Airport Commission. The Freemasons have long been associated with secret societies, powerful elites, and, of course, the Illuminati. Is this just another coincidence, or is it a confirmation? To be fair, there are plausible explanations for many of these oddities. The swastika-like runway configuration is likely just an efficient layout that allows planes to take off in various directions to accommodate different wind conditions. The artist behind the bizarre murals insisted they depicted a symbolic journey from warfare to worldwide peace. The underground structures could simply be leftover infrastructure or tunnels for baggage handling and transportation. And yet, why do so many strange coincidences converge in this one location? Why was there so much secrecy, and why is the art so unsettling? Why would the airport lean so heavily into the conspiracy narratives if they were entirely baseless? The puzzle of DIA isn't about a single red flag. It's about a constant parade of them. Regardless of whether you believe in secret societies, there is something undeniably strange about this airport. So, is Denver International Airport merely an artistically bizarre, over-budget public works project, or is it a front for something deeper, more secretive, and perhaps even otherworldly? The truth remains buried, both literally and figuratively, beneath the tarmac of DIA. Until someone reveals what's hidden, we may never know for sure. Nestled in the majestic shadow of the Colorado Rockies, a grand, white hotel stands overlooking the town of Estes Park. It is a place of beauty, history, and profound hauntings. This is the Stanley Hotel, renowned for its elegant design and stunning mountain views, but even more famous for a ghostly reputation that sparked one of the most frightening horror stories ever written, The Shining. What is it about this particular hotel that sent a chill down Stephen King's spine? Why do so many visitors depart with their own unnerving tales of the unexplained? And is there truly something that still resides within its historic halls? Let's check in and find out. The Stanley Hotel was constructed in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley, the co-inventor of the Stanley Steamer automobile. After receiving a tuberculosis diagnosis, Stanley relocated to Colorado to benefit from the dry mountain climate. The change worked wonders for his health, and in gratitude, he decided to build a luxurious resort for the area. The hotel was a marvel of its time, equipped with electric lights, telephones, and in-suite plumbing, quickly establishing itself as a premier destination for the affluent. But even in its earliest days, staff and guests would whisper of strange occurrences. The sound of footsteps in vacant corridors, lights flickering on their own, and phantom laughter echoing in the middle of the night. At first, these were dismissed as minor quirks. Then, in 1974, a young writer named Stephen King and his wife, Tabitha, checked into the Stanley Hotel near the close of its season. They were the only guests in the entire building. The vast dining room stood empty, and the long hallways were eerily silent. They were given room 217. During the night, King experienced a terrifying nightmare in which his young son was running through the hotel's corridors, screaming in terror as something monstrous pursued him. He awoke in a cold sweat, stepped onto the balcony for a cigarette, and by the time he had finished it, the fundamental concept for The Shining had taken shape in his mind. He would later recall, "When I went to bed that night, I had the bones of the book in my mind. With that, the Stanley Hotel was immortalized in legend." Let's focus on room 217, the very room that triggered Stephen King's inspiration. Decades before his stay, in 1911, a head housekeeper named Elizabeth Wilson was grievously injured in that room during a gas leak explosion. Although she survived the blast, many are convinced that her spirit never truly left. Guests who stay in room 217 have described a variety of peculiar events. They report lights switching on and off by themselves, personal items being inexplicably moved, and even finding their clothes neatly folded after they have been out. Some have felt a comforting presence, as if someone were gently tucking them into bed. The paranormal activity is not limited to that room. Room 428 is notorious for the apparition of a ghostly cowboy, who is often seen standing near the bed. Guests in that room have also reported hearing footsteps overhead, despite there being no floor above it. In the concert hall, the spirits of former performers are said to remain. People have heard faint piano melodies, the sound of applause, and even disembodied laughter when the room is completely deserted. Security guards have also reported hearing voices in empty hallways, and numerous photographs taken at the hotel reveal strange, shadowy figures who were not present when the pictures were taken. The Stanley Hotel has fully embraced its eerie reputation. Today, it hosts nightly ghost tours that are far from your typical tourist attraction. Both guests and paranormal investigators frequently capture electronic voice phenomena, experience sudden cold spots, and witness objects moving without explanation. There's even a location known as the Vortex, a spiral staircase between floors where people often report feeling dizzy, off balance, or intensely chilled. Some paranormal experts speculate that it could be a type of spiritual gateway. Whether you are a firm skeptic or a devoted believer, the sheer volume of ghost stories collected over more than a century is difficult to dismiss. Popular television shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures have investigated the hotel, collecting evidence that includes shadowy figures and strange audio recordings. One well-known recording captures the sound of a child's laughter echoing through an otherwise empty corridor. What makes the Stanley such a compelling haunted location is not just the ghost stories, but its pervasive atmosphere. The long, winding hallways, the antique furnishings, the creaking floorboards, and the echoes of a bygone era all contribute to the feeling of unease. The hotel's beauty seems to amplify its eeriness, creating the sense that the building itself is alive, observing, and waiting. The Shining only intensified this perception. Interestingly, while Stanley Kubrick's iconic film adaptation used a different hotel for its exterior shots, the television miniseries version was filmed on location at the Stanley itself. Today, the hotel continues to be a major draw for ghost hunters, horror enthusiasts, and curious travelers hoping to catch a glimpse of something beyond our world. So, is the Stanley Hotel genuinely haunted, or is it all just the power of suggestion, fueled by legend, literature, and hushed late-night tales? Whatever the reality may be, one thing is clear. The Stanley is far more than a beautiful, historic hotel. It is a living narrative where the past seems to linger just beneath the surface. On a pleasant summer afternoon in 2015, a young man named Joe Keller went for a run in the stunning but isolated wilderness of southwestern Colorado. He was an adventurous and vibrant young man, full of life. But Joe never returned from that run. His disappearance triggered a massive search operation, captivated the nation, and left behind a trail of questions with no clear answers. How could a person vanish without a trace during a routine jog? What transpired in the wild lands near Creede, Colorado? And why does this case continue to haunt everyone who followed it? This is the perplexing story of Joe Keller, a tale of natural beauty, remote wilderness, and a profound silence that is yet to be broken. Joe Keller was 19 years old, a charismatic and athletic college student from Tennessee who had a deep love for running, climbing, and the great outdoors. In July of 2015, he and a friend journeyed west to spend some time at a dude ranch in Creede, Colorado. The establishment, called the Rainbow Trout Ranch, is situated in a remote area surrounded by rugged trails, dense forests, and steep cliffs. It was meant to be an enjoyable and restorative trip, the kind of getaway that clears one's mind and rejuvenates the spirit. Joe had recently completed a challenging semester at college, and this was his chance to unwind with fresh air, no stress, and open trails. On July 23rd, around lunchtime, Joe decided to go for a run. He left the ranch wearing his running gear, but carried no phone and no GPS device. It was just Joe, alone with the trail. That was the last time he was ever seen alive. Initially, there was no widespread panic. Joe was known for his self-reliance, so perhaps he had simply run a greater distance than he intended or had stopped to explore a scenic spot. But as the hours stretched on with no sign of him, concern began to grow. The ranch staff, fellow guests, and local residents quickly formed a search party and began combing the nearby trails, calling out his name. When darkness fell and Joe had still not come back, the The authorities were notified, and the situation became serious. The Costilla County Sheriff's Office, along with search and rescue teams, helicopters, ATVs, and scent dogs, were all deployed. The terrain was treacherous, with steep slopes, thick woods, and areas infested with rattlesnakes, making the search both dangerous and painstakingly slow. Days turned into weeks, yet not a single clue was found. There are no footprints, no discarded equipment, no phone, no watch, and no articles of clothing. It was as though Joe Keller had simply ceased to exist. As the search continued without results, various theories started to circulate. Was it a tragic accident? Could Joe have slipped and fallen into a ravine, becoming trapped in a location that searchers couldn't access? The possibility of a wildlife encounter was also considered, as bears and mountain lions are known to inhabit the region. Could he have been attacked? Or was there a more sinister explanation? There were whispers of foul play. Could someone have harmed Joe and conceal the evidence? Did he encounter a stranger with malicious intent on a remote trail? Or was the perpetrator someone closer to the ranch? Although authorities never officially identified any suspects, to this day, some people believe that Joe didn't just get lost, he was taken. Another theory considered was a voluntary disappearance. Did he choose to leave on his own? This idea made little sense to those who knew him. Joe had no history of depression or mental instability, was very close with his family, and, while adventurous, was not known to be reckless. Something about the situation felt profoundly wrong. More than a year later, in September of 2016, a hiker made a tragic discovery just 3 miles from the ranch: Joe Keller's remains. His body was located in a rugged area near a cliff, and some of his personal belongings, including his shoes, a water bottle, and a watch, were found nearby. However, not all of his items were recovered, and strangely, there were no obvious signs of significant trauma or an animal attack. The authorities officially ruled his death an accident, concluding that Joe had likely fallen from high elevation and succumbed to his injuries. But this explanation did not satisfy everyone. For one, the area where his body was found had been searched multiple times before. It seemed improbable that search teams could have missed a body so close to the ranch for over a year, especially since experienced search dogs had been deployed in that same area. How could they have overlooked it? Furthermore, there were questions about the condition of the remains. Some observers claimed they appeared too well preserved for having been exposed to the elements for an entire year, while others pointed out that certain key items were still missing. It felt less like a resolution and more like an incomplete story. Joe's parents, Rick and Zoe Keller, were devastated by their loss but remained determined. They fought to keep their son's story in the public eye, questioning the investigation, the slow communication from authorities, and the numerous gaps in the timeline. To them, something still felt amiss. They believed Joe may have been a victim of foul play and that someone out there knows more than they have revealed. Today, Joe's case is officially closed, but the mystery surrounding his disappearance endures. No one knows for certain what happened in his final moments. No one can explain why a healthy, strong young man would vanish so close to safety in broad daylight on familiar ground. Joe Keller was more than just a headline. He was a son, a friend, and a bright spirit with a passion for life. And like so many wilderness mysteries, his story poses a chilling question. How can someone simply disappear? In the vast, untamed beauty of Colorado's mountains, Joe Keller's memory lives on, not just as a figure of tragedy, but as a reminder that even in our modern world, some places refuse to give up their secrets. There is a stretch of land in southern Colorado that possesses a unique quality. It is quiet, isolated, and encircled by mountains, framed by high desert and steeped in silence. This place is known as the San Luis Valley, and for many decades, it has been a focal point of unexplainable phenomena. People report glowing orbs, silent metallic crafts, mysterious cattle mutilations, and figures that seem to vanish into thin air. The locals will tell you that strange things are a part of life here. And when you gaze up at the night sky, you shouldn't be surprised if you see something gazing back. This is the enduring mystery of the San Luis Valley UFO sightings, one of the most active and least understood paranormal hotspots in America. The San Luis Valley extends for over 8,000 square miles, reaching the borders of Colorado and New Mexico. It is enclosed by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, a range where ancient myths and a profound silence run deep. The land has long been considered sacred by Native American tribes, such as the Ute and the Navajo, some of whom believed it to be a thin place, where the boundary between our world and others becomes permeable. Even the Spanish settlers who arrived in the 1600s documented strange lights dancing in the sky and enigmatic beings emerging from the hills. However, it was not until the 20th century that the sightings grew more frequent and more intense. In the late 1960s, a surge of UFO sightings and cattle mutilations struck the region. Ranchers began to discover their livestock dead, completely drained of blood, with injuries that appeared to be made with surgical precision. There were never any tracks or signs of predators. This phenomenon was both chilling and entirely unexplained. During the same period, residents started to report seeing strange crafts hovering silently above their fields. These included glowing spheres, classic saucer-shaped objects, and even cigar-shaped vessels that could disappear at impossible speeds. One of the most notorious incidents took place in 1975 when numerous witnesses, including law enforcement officers, observed a triangular craft moving silently over the valley. It produced no exhaust and made no sound. It just hovered as if it were watching. Military jets were dispatched to investigate, but by the time they arrived, the object had vanished. Was this a coincidence, or was it a deliberate evasion of detection? Among the most unsettling and well-known cases is the Snippy the horse incident. In 1967, a horse named Snippy was discovered deceased on a ranch near Alamosa. Her body was found to be completely drained of blood, and the flesh on her head had been stripped clean down to the bone. Yet, there were no indications of a struggle and no tracks of any kind in the vicinity. A strange, burnt odor lingered in the air. The story was picked up by newspapers, and UFO researchers flocked to the area. Theories about what happened range from secret government experiments to alien abductions. To this day, the Snippy case remains one of the earliest and most bizarre examples of what is believed to be extraterrestrial mutilation. The unusual activity did not subside over time. In fact, it became even stranger. This brings us to Judy Messeline, a rancher who relocated to the valley in the early 2000s. After having her own inexplicable sightings, she constructed what is now one of the most unusual tourist destinations in the country, the UFO Watchtower. It is a simple platform offering a 360-degree view of the valley, but the stories that originate from this spot are anything but simple. Visitors from all over the world have reported seeing flashing lights with no discernible source, silent crafts flying in organized formations, sudden drops in temperature, and even receiving telepathic messages or feeling as though they were being watched. Some visitors leave crystals, offerings, or handwritten notes at the nearby Energy Vortex Garden, hoping to make contact or find some clarity. Judy herself claims to have witnessed dozens of UFOs, and she is far from alone in her experiences. Despite the vast number of reports, there has been remarkably little official investigation into these phenomena. Some locals believe that the government is aware of what is happening and is actively concealing the truth. In fact, many people have reported an increase in military aircraft activity shortly after major sightings, as if someone is closely monitoring the situation. So, what are the possible explanations? Experimental aircraft is one theory, but why would top-secret technology be tested in plain sight over a rural area? Natural phenomena, such as ball lightning or atmospheric distortions, have also been suggested, but these explanations do not account for metallic crafts or mutilated animals. Or could it truly be something extraterrestrial? Some researchers propose that the San Luis Valley is a portal, a sort of interdimensional hub. A few have even claimed to have had encounters with tall beings, creatures with glowing eyes, or experiences of time distortion. While these theories may sound extreme, in this valley, the line between reality and legend becomes blurred. To grasp the full depth of this mystery, one need only speak with the local residents. From farmers and teachers to retired military personnel, countless people have stories they cannot explain. There's the rancher who watched a glowing blue orb move across his property, hover above his cattle, and then shoot straight up into the sky, disappearing in an instant. Or the woman who woke up in her car after pulling over for a roadside rest, finding that 3 hours had passed with no memory of what had occurred. In this valley, it is not about belief, it is about lived experience. Something is happening here, and it has been happening for decades. The San Luis Valley remains a place of stark beauty and profound mystery. The skies are vast, the silence is unending, and whatever has been watching from above has shown no signs of leaving. Whether it's alien visitors, hidden technology, or something even stranger, the truth may be just beyond our reach, floating silently in the night. In the heart of Colorado's snow-covered wilderness, 5 men disappeared. Only one of them returned, starving, frostbitten, and utterly alone. That man's name was Alfred Packer, and his eventual confession would send shockwaves across the nation. He had managed to survive, while the others had not. But how'd he do it? Why did it happen? And was he a man driven to desperate measures? Or was he a cold-blooded killer? This is the true story of Alfred Packer, America's most infamous cannibal and a Colorado mystery that continues to provoke debate more than a century later. The year was 1874. The Colorado Territory was a wild and untamed land, filled with the promise of gold for hopeful prospectors. A group of 6 men, including Alfred Packer, embarked from Utah with the goal of striking it rich in the San Juan Mountains. Their intended destination was the gold fields near Breckenridge, but they had chosen a perilous season for their journey. Severe snowstorms swept across the Rockies, their food supplies dwindled, and they were woefully unprepared for the brutal conditions that awaited them. Disregarding the warnings of local residents, the group pressed on, venturing deeper into the mountains. That was the last time the other 5 men were seen alive. 2 months later, Alfred Packer emerged from the wilderness by himself. He appeared gaunt, severely frostbitten, and deeply shaken. He recounted a story of how the group had become lost, and one by one, the men had succumbed to the extreme cold and starvation. Packer claimed that he had survived by consuming roots, tree bark, and, eventually, the flesh of his deceased companions. But his story was inconsistent and kept changing. At first, he said that 1 man died, and the rest of the group consumed his remains. Then, he claimed that the men had fought amongst themselves. Later, he stated that he had killed one of them in self-defense. The locals at the nearby Los Pinos Indian Agency became suspicious. Several things didn't add up. Packer had money on him, more than he should have possessed. He also had a skinning knife and other personal belongings that had belonged to the other men. The breaking point came when a search party discovered the bodies. 5 men, frozen in the snow, bore unmistakable signs of butchery. The scene was horrifying. The bodies had been cut open, limbs had been removed, and pieces of flesh had been sliced off. They were not scattered about. They were found together in one location, which contradicted Packer's claim that they had wandered off and died separately. Even more disturbingly, the remains appeared to be relatively fresh, suggesting that the cannibalism was not merely an act of survival, but might have been sustained over time, perhaps even intentionally. By this point, suspicion had turned to public outrage. Packer was arrested, but he managed to escape from jail and vanish for 9 years. In 1883, he was finally apprehended in Wyoming, where he was living under the alias of John Schwartz. He was brought back to Colorado to stand trial for murder and cannibalism. The newspapers sensationalized the case, portraying him as a monster. During his trial, Packer offered yet another version of events. He claimed that only 1 man, Shannon Bell, had gone insane from hunger and had murdered the other members of the group. Packer said that he had shot Bell in self-defense after discovering him roasting human flesh over a fire. But by then, public opinion was firmly against him. The jury did not believe his ever-changing stories. He was ultimately convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 40 years in prison, which was the longest sentence ever handed down in Colorado at that time. Nevertheless, many questions remained unanswered. Some historians believe that Packer's original story might have contained some element of truth. After all, survival cannibalism was not unheard of in the 19th century. One only has to remember the tragic story of the Donner Party. Was Packer simply a man who was forced to do the unthinkable in order to survive? Or did he orchestrate the deaths of his companions, luring them into the mountains with the intent to rob and kill them? His constantly shifting narrative only served to deepen the mystery. Even forensic analysis of the remains, conducted much later in the 1980s, suggested that the men had been killed with a hatchet and not in a chaotic struggle. This implied premeditation, with multiple blows to the head and systematic butchering. One expert stated bluntly, "This wasn't survival. This was slaughter." In 1901, after serving 17 years of his sentence, Alfred Packer was granted parole. He relocated to Denver, found work as a security guard, and lived a quiet life until his death in 1907. Even in his final years, he maintained that he had only done what was necessary to survive. But the public never forgave or forgot his story. It became an integral part of Colorado's folklore. Some view him as a villain, while others see him as a victim of desperation and the chaos of the frontier. To this day, the case continues to fascinate historians, filmmakers, and true crime enthusiasts. The story of Alfred Packer is not just about cannibalism. It is a tale of fear, survival, isolation, and the thin line that separates humanity from horror. In the unforgiving mountains of Colorado, one man lived while 5 others died, but the truth of what happened between them may be forever frozen in the snow. Tucked away deep within the Elk Mountains of Colorado is a winding expanse of wilderness known as the Crystal River Valley. It is a place of stunning beauty, profound isolation, and a strange, unsettling atmosphere. For decades, it is said that something has been lurking here, something that is not quite human. The locals refer to it as the Crystal River Sasquatch. They describe a huge, hairy, and silent creature that watches from a distance. It has reportedly been seen darting between pine trees, leaving behind footprints the size of dinner plates before vanishing like a ghost into the mountains. What is truly happening in this remote corner of Colorado? Let's delve into the eerie case of the Crystal River Sasquatch, a mystery shrouded in wilderness, legend, and fear. The Crystal River winds its way through Pitkin County, carving a path through dense forest between the towns of Carbondale and Marble. For most tourists, it is simply a scenic drive. But for those who live in the area, it is something more, a place filled with stories that are passed down like cautionary tales. These are stories of unseen creatures, massive footprints, and an intense feeling that you are never truly alone. As far back as the 1940s, loggers and hunters began to report something unusual. They described hearing heavy footsteps in the woods, far too heavy to be a deer. Some claimed to have seen tall figures watching them from the cover of the trees, ducking behind trunks the moment they were noticed. Could it have been a bear? Perhaps, but bears do not typically stand upright for long periods, and they certainly don't disappear without making a sound. Over the years, the stories only grew more bizarre. In 1973, a prospector named Hank Miller claimed that he saw a giant, fur-covered creature standing knee-deep in the river near the town of Redstone. He said that it stood over 8 feet tall and simply stared at him before turning away and melting back into the trees. In 1992, a group of college students who were hiking just outside of Marble came across a trail of enormous footprints. Each print was nearly 18 inches long, with a stride that was wider than any human could possibly manage. The tracks led into the forest, but there were no return prints to be found. It was as if whatever had made them had simply vanished into thin air. And then there was the encounter that would send a chill down anyone's spine. In the summer of 2003, a woman named Mary Daniels was working at a remote lodge not far from the river. One night, At around 2:30 a.m., she was startled awake by a loud knocking sound. It wasn't coming from the door, but from the side of the cabin. She cautiously peered out the window and saw it. A massive shadow, tall and broad-shouldered, covered in dark hair. It was standing at the edge of the tree line, swaying slightly, as if it were curious. When she flipped on the porch light, it was gone. The next morning, she discovered the ground littered with huge footprints circling the cabin. She also found that the bark had been stripped from a pine tree 8 feet up, clawed off in thick gouges. She quit her job and never went back. So, what exactly is the Crystal River Sasquatch? The descriptions from various witnesses remain eerily consistent. It is between 7 and 9 feet tall, covered in matted, dark hair, walks on 2 legs, and emits a low, rumbling growl. Skeptics have offered rational explanations, most commonly attributing the sightings to black bears. However, even wildlife experts concede that bears do not leave bipedal tracks of that size, nor do they pace around cabins in the middle of the night. Some cryptozoologists speculate that it could be a surviving relic of Gigantopithecus, an extinct species of ape that is thought to have stood nearly 10 feet tall. Others suggest that it might be an entirely new species, one that has perfected the art of hiding in plain sight. And then there are the more unconventional theories. The Crystal River region has a long history of paranormal phenomena, from UFO sightings to strange light anomalies. Some people believe that the Sasquatch is not a physical being at all, but something interdimensional. This may sound far-fetched, but in the deep woods, the lines of reality can become blurry. There is no clear photograph of the Crystal River Sasquatch, at least not yet, but there is physical evidence. Footprint casts that have been collected by local researchers show a remarkable level of detail, including toe impressions and dermal ridges that are rarely replicated in hoaxes. Audio recordings that were captured deep in the forest feature howls and tree-knocking sounds, behaviors that have been attributed to Sasquatch sightings all across North America. And then there is the pattern of missing wildlife, sudden, unexplained disappearances of game animals in areas known for these sightings. Is this a coincidence, or is it something more calculated? Today, the Crystal River Valley remains as quiet and remote as ever. You won't find any Bigfoot-themed gift shops here, no guided tours, no kitsch, just the forest, the river, and the profound silence. Yet, people continue to return with new stories. A hiker finds their campsite mysteriously disturbed. A hunter hears guttural breathing in the darkness. A trail camera captures nothing at all, except for a single blurry frame showing a shadow that is too tall to be human. The locals say that you don't find the Sasquatch, it finds you. In the end, the mystery of the Crystal River Sasquatch is not just about proving that Bigfoot is real. It is about what happens when we venture into nature's deepest, most remote places, the places that seem to want us to leave. It is about the unsettling fear that perhaps, just perhaps, we are not the apex species after all. Whether it is a lost hominid, a forest spirit, or something even stranger, the message is clear. Something walks these woods, and it does not want to be found. Nestled in the shadow of Colorado's iconic Pikes Peak is the quiet town of Florissant. It is a sleepy place, more known for its ancient fossils and peaceful meadows than for anything sinister. But if you ask some of the local residents, they might share a story that they both half believe and half fear. It is a tale of phantoms, hidden gold, and the mysterious figure who is said to guard it to this day. This is the legend of the lost treasure of the Florissant Phantom, a Colorado mystery that is buried in time, shadow, and perhaps greed. Florissant was not always so tranquil. In the late 1800s, during Colorado's gold rush, it was a bustling hub for travelers heading west. The town was filled with saloons, stagecoach stops, and miners passing through with pockets full of gold, or at least dreams of finding it. One such traveler was a man named Elias Breenage, a prospector who was rumored to have discovered a massive vein of gold somewhere in the surrounding hills. He was known to be a quiet and paranoid man, always looking over his shoulder. According to the legend, Elias never trusted banks or partners. Instead, He concealed his fortune somewhere on the outskirts of Florissant, vowing that no one but him would ever find it. But then he vanished. Days turned into weeks, and Elias was never seen again. Some speculated that he had been killed by bandits. Others believed he had fallen victim to the unforgiving wilderness. But a few claimed to have seen something far stranger, a shadowy figure roaming the woods at night. It was described as tall and hunched, cloaked in black. It never spoke and never approached anyone. It just watched. The locals soon began to call it the Florissant Phantom. Shortly after, strange things began to happen near the edge of town. Horses would become inexplicably panicked. Campfires were found mysteriously extinguished, and hikers reported discovering old tools, like picks and shovels, half buried in the soil, as if someone had been digging recently. Was this the ghost of Elias, or was it someone else still searching for his treasure? In the 1930s, a rancher was clearing brush on his land near Florissant when he discovered an old, rusted lockbox buried beneath a tree root. Inside, he found a faded leather pouch filled with gold dust, and beneath it, a journal. Most of the pages were too weathered to be legible, but one line was still visible. "No one will take it from me. Not while I breathe." Was this Elias's journal? The rancher attempted to return to the site the next day, but he claimed that he saw a figure shrouded in fog, standing perfectly still at the edge of the woods. He left immediately and sold the land a month later. Even in the 21st century, the legend of the Florissant Phantom has not faded away. In 2009, two backpackers who were hiking near the Florissant fossil beds claimed that they were stalked by a tall figure wearing a duster coat, which would vanish every time they turned their heads to get a better look. One of them managed to take a picture, but the image only showed trees and what might have been a shadow between them. Paranormal investigators have since visited the area, and their equipment has behaved erratically. EMF detectors have spiked for no apparent reason, and cameras have malfunctioned. Some have even reported hearing whispering or the unmistakable sound of shovels digging late at night. Yet, no one has ever found Elias's gold or definitively proven that the Phantom is real. But the stories continue to surface. So, what is really going on in Florissant? Some historians believe that a man named Elias Breenage did exist. He was a miner who went missing in the late 1800s. There are some scattered mining records that bear his name, but nothing conclusive. Skeptics argue that the story was likely exaggerated over time, becoming a local ghost story designed to scare children and attract curious tourists. After all, legends can be great for business. But there is a problem with that theory. People still report sightings of a tall, silent figure dressed in black, sometimes standing in the same spot for hours, unmoving, always watching, but never speaking. And then there is the matter of the gold. Even today, metal detector enthusiasts and amateur treasure hunters flock to the area every summer. Some claim to have found small gold nuggets, while others swear they have unearthed empty chests with what appear to be claw marks on the inside, as if someone had tried to dig their way out. Some believe that the treasure is not just lost, but cursed. They say that Elias was so obsessed with protecting his fortune, so driven by greed, that when he died, he was unable to let it go. They believe he became the guardian of his own gold, condemned to wander the woods forever, chasing away anyone who gets too close. One local legend even claims that anyone who finds the treasure will be haunted by the Phantom until they return it. Is it a treasure or a trap? A path to wealth or a dire warning? One thing is certain, no one has ever publicly claimed to have found Elias's gold, and those who have searched for it often walk away with something far less valuable: fear. The story of the Florissant Phantom is not just about gold. It is about how obsession can linger, how greed can corrupt the soul, and how some mysteries are buried not in the earth, but in time. Perhaps the treasure is still out there. Perhaps the Phantom is real. Or perhaps Florissant's past simply refuses to remain silent. So, if you ever find yourself hiking those quiet trails and you feel eyes on your back, you might not want to look too long. You might not like what you see. There is a serene stretch of land in El Paso County, Colorado, just north of Colorado Springs, known as the Black Forest. It is a beautiful and peaceful place with tall pine trees and sunlight filtering through the branches. But beneath this calm exterior lies one of the most chilling and well-documented hauntings in American history. This is not your typical ghost story. This is a case that involves photographs, video footage, and even the involvement of the FBI. Welcome to the story of the Black Forest haunting. In 1991, Steve and Beth Lee believed they had found their dream home, a quiet log cabin nestled deep within the Black Forest. They moved in with their two sons, hoping to escape the noise and bustle of city life. At first, everything seemed perfect, peaceful, and private. But within a few weeks, that peace was shattered. Doors would open and slam shut without warning. Lights would flicker on and off, and strange chemical smells would suddenly permeate the air, only to vanish just as quickly. And then came the sounds, footsteps in the hallway, whispers from the attic, and something far more disturbing, the sound of heavy breathing, even when the house was completely empty. Initially, Steve attributed these occurrences to mundane causes, such as electrical problems or faulty wiring. He thought perhaps an animal had gotten into the walls. But then, the family began to see things. They witnessed shadowy figures standing at the edge of their vision and flashing lights that didn't seem to come from any lamp or light bulb, but rather from midair. Their sons reported seeing a tall, transparent man standing over their beds at night. They said that sometimes he wore a hat, and other times he had glowing red eyes. The family decided to set up cameras to try to catch the intruder. What they captured on film would shake even the most hardened skeptics. Over the next several months, Steve Lee installed motion-triggered cameras throughout the home. The results were terrifying. The photographs revealed strange beams of light in rooms that were otherwise pitch black. Some of the images showed human-like figures that appeared to be floating or walking through the walls. And then came the faces, dozens of them, transparent and disembodied, peering out from walls, windows, and ceilings. There were faces of men, women, and even what appeared to be children. The footage was sent to professional photographers for analysis, and their verdict was that the photos had not been tampered with. Whatever was happening inside the Lee home was real. As the haunting intensified, the story gained national attention. In 1994, the case was featured on Sightings, a popular paranormal television show at the time. A team of psychics, scientists, and investigators visited the home. They managed to capture more strange light, anomalies, and experienced intense personal reactions. Some reported a suffocating sensation, as if an unseen force was pressing down on their chests. Others described having violent nightmares, even when they were sleeping off-site after visiting the house. One psychic claimed that the property was situated on a spiritual window, a kind of portal where different entities could cross over into our world. So, what exactly was haunting the Black Forest? There are several theories. Some believe that the property was a hot spot of spiritual energy, possibly caused by underground quartz deposits, a theory that is popular in paranormal circles. Others think it was a psychic portal, a tear between dimensions that allowed spirits and possibly other entities to cross over. A more chilling theory suggests that the haunting was not just the work of ghosts, but something demonic. Several psychics described the presence of inhuman entities, creatures that could mimic voices, manipulate electronic devices, and feed on fear. And then there is Steve Lee's own belief. He claimed that his home had become a battlefield between good and evil, and that the spirits were fighting each other, not the family. He believed they were simply caught in the middle of this spiritual conflict. Despite years of documentation, cleansing rituals, and spiritual investigations, the paranormal activity never completely ceased. Eventually, the Lee family made the decision to stay. They claimed that they had learned to coexist with whatever was in their house. But the evidence remains. Thousands of photographs, hours of video footage, and dozens of eyewitness accounts. Even the El Paso County Sheriff's Department logged multiple calls to the house for reported intruders, though no one was ever found. The haunting of the Black Forest is considered one of the most well-documented cases in modern paranormal history, and yet, no one knows exactly what it was. Today, the house still stands, surrounded by the same quiet pine trees. There are no tours, no signs, and no markers to indicate what happened there. But those who pass by often say that the air feels heavy. The locals whisper about strange lights seen deep in the woods at night. They say that the Black Forest watches you, even if you don't believe in ghosts. And as for those who are brave enough to enter the woods after dark, some say they come back changed, quieter, paler, as if they have seen something they can't explain. The Black Forest haunting is not just a story about ghosts. It is a stark reminder that even in our modern world, with all our cameras, science, and certainty, there are still corners of the earth where the rules of reality break down. These are places where something waits just beyond the veil, watching and waiting. Whether you believe in spirits, portals, or psychological phenomena, one thing is clear. The Leaf family saw something, and they were not alone. On December 26, 1996, in the quiet city of Boulder, Colorado, a place known for its scenic beauty and peaceful neighborhoods, a winter night unfolded that would become one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in the history of American true crime. The murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey sent shockwaves across the nation, baffled investigators, and ignited decades of speculation, theories, and profound heartbreak. This is the story of a little girl whose life and death continue to haunt Colorado and the world to this day. JonBenet Ramsey was not just any child. She was a young beauty queen, a girl who had won numerous child pageants and was known for her dazzling smile and sparkling personality. On the morning of December 26th, JonBenet's mother, Patsy Ramsey, made a chilling discovery at the bottom of the stairs in their home. It was a ransom note demanding $118,000 for JonBenet's safe return. This was a suspicious amount, as it closely matched a recent bonus her father, John Ramsey, had received from his tech company. But JonBenet was nowhere to be found. Hours later, her body was discovered in the basement of the Ramsey home. She had been strangled and had suffered a skull fracture. The community was stunned. How could something so horrific happen in such a quiet, affluent neighborhood? From the very beginning, the investigation was plagued by contradictions and controversy. The police questioned the Ramseys extensively, and their every move was scrutinized by the public. Some people believed the parents were involved, while others were convinced they were innocent victims caught in an unimaginable nightmare. The ransom note itself was highly unusual. It was exceptionally long and detailed, written with language and demands that some experts found to be odd and inconsistent with those of typical kidnappers. Adding to the mystery, there was no sign of a forced entry into the house and no clear evidence of an intruder. The case quickly turned into a media circus, with reporters dissecting every detail and transforming the family's private grief into a public spectacle. Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Was it a botched kidnapping attempt that went horribly wrong? Was it a family member acting out of a fit of rage? Or was it a stranger who had managed to slip into the house unnoticed? One suspect, Gary Oliva, a convicted child molester who lived nearby, was questioned but was never charged with the crime. The DNA evidence that was collected from JonBenet's clothing and the crime scene remained inconclusive for years, only adding to the confusion. In 2008, advancements in DNA testing officially cleared the Ramseys of any suspicion, but the killer has never been identified. Some still speculate about a mysterious intruder based on the DNA found at the scene, but no one has ever been arrested or held accountable for the crime. The JonBenet Ramsey case became one of the most widely covered crimes in history. Numerous TV specials, documentaries, books, and podcasts have attempted to piece together what really happened on that fateful night. Public opinion has swung wildly over the years, with some people remaining convinced of parental guilt, while others have steadfastly defended the family. The intense media spotlight had a profound and lasting effect on the Ramseys. John and Patsy lived under a heavy cloud of suspicion until Patsy's death in 2006. Even decades later, the case continues to divide people. Despite exhaustive investigations, many key questions remain unanswered. Who wrote the bizarre ransom note? How did the killer gain entry to the house? Why was JonBenet's body left in the basement? And most hauntingly of all, why was a child taken from the warmth and safety of her own home in such a brutal manner? Some experts believe that the answer lies buried in the details of the case. Overlooked clues, forensic evidence, or witness testimony that was never fully examined. Others think that the truth may never come to light. JonBenét's death forever changed how America views child safety, media coverage, and the complexities of crime investigation. Her story serves as a tragic reminder of how fragile life can be and how even the quietest of neighborhoods can harbor unspeakable tragedy. In Boulder today, JonBenet is remembered not only as a victim, but as a symbol of lost innocence and the urgent, ongoing need for justice. The murder of JonBenet Ramsey remains a painful and unresolved mystery, one that is filled with unanswered questions, profound heartbreak, and the relentless pursuit of a truth that remains just out of reach. For many, it is a reminder that some stories are never truly closed.